how it felt for me to be dealing with severe eczema, it was probably like one of the worst I've ever felt in my entire life. All I wanted to do was hide, and that was my reality. Like, I would be wearing long sleeve shirts. Like right now I'm rolling up my sleeve because obviously I want to show off my arms. I'm so happy that now my eczema's been cleared. But at the time I would be wearing long sleeves like this and covering my entire hand at work, like going around typing on my computer like this. As much as I could cover, I would. Alright, hi. So I'm gonna keep this as real as possible and as vulnerable as possible in talking to you guys about something that was my reality for quite a long time, and something that I've been struggling with, I'd probably say the majority for the past 2 years, but since I was 16 years old. And sharing my story with you guys, I hope that somebody who's dealing with something similar or might be even going through the same thing can find the peace that they need within themselves to set out on their own journey to heal and to get better. I'm going to talk to you guys about what it's been like to live with severe eczema, which was my reality for the past 2 years of my life when it got really, really severe. My eczema started when I was 16, 17, around that time. I was in high school, and I remember it being in the winter time that I was just, you know, noticing my hands and noticing that they were really itchy. And there's one patch in particular on my finger that was a different patch than a normal dry spot. And I just remember going at it, and it was itchier than a normal part of skin that would be dry. And I didn't think much of it at the time because it honestly wasn't too severe, too serious, but it was something that persisted and something that was a little bit annoying to deal with. Every time winter rolled around, a little patch or a couple patches on my hand would pop up. My hand would be really itchy, and nothing too serious, nowhere else in my body. So at some point when I was in college, the itching started to get a little bit worse, and the eczema started to grow a little bit. So I remember going to the doctors because at this point, a lot of my knuckles and my hand were pretty dry and had the eczema. And I remember this is one of the first times that I was prescribed steroid cream to help my eczema. So anybody who has eczema knows that when you go to the doctors and you tell them about an itchy patch that you have or eczema that you're dealing with, there's no real solution and no real fix to taking away your eczema forever. Once you have eczema, it's kind of a journey you have to go on yourself to find what it is that's causing you to have these flare-ups, to be itchy. And it's not an easy path. To be honest, at the time when I was in college, I didn't even really think about nutrition or what I was putting into my body or taking care of myself and really looking within myself to see why I was having these flare-ups. For me, it was just, I thought that the more that I moisturized or whatever cream I could find to help take away my eczema, like that would be the solution, that would be it. I always thought at that time that it was just an external problem that I had. I got steroid creams when I was in college, and it honestly helped a lot at the beginning. So I put it on my hand and I would be pretty clear for at least like a couple of days to up to a week. But after I stopped using the cream, the eczema would come back. And that's when I realized that steroids and topical solutions weren't actually going to be the solution to taking away my eczema. So now I want to talk about when eczema became really real for me, when it actually became something that overtook my confidence and even overtook my happiness at a lot of points in the past 2 years. So about 2 years ago, my family hit a really rough patch. We were going through some really hard times and some struggles, and this was probably one of the hardest times in my life because my parents, they were working towards a mission, a business, and that wasn't working out, and so we lost everything. We were really struggling financially, and there was a lot of unhappiness and anger and disappointment residing within my family at the time, and constant fights and constant stress that was going on. It was a really hard time for all of us. During this time, my eczema also started to worsen. And this is when I started to really take notice of the pain and the suffering that comes along with having a skin condition like eczema. Those patches, the small patches I used to have on my hands, started to turn into really big patches of eczema. And it became to the point where I would be itching so much that it would keep me up through the night, that I would start to crack and bleed and blister. And I can show you guys some pictures of what my hands were starting to look like 2 years to up to 3 months ago. It was causing me a lot of stress and a lot of concern. And at this time I was trying everything you can imagine in the past 2 years to really dive deep and figure out what was going on with me and my body and why my eczema was getting worse. About 1.5 years ago, I met my boyfriend, and at that time I became really determined because we talked about my eczema, and it was something that we were going to get to the bottom of. And we wanted to figure out what was actually causing this. When you have eczema, it's not an easy path to go down to figure out what it might be, because there's so many factors that are at play with eczema. And for me, the first thing I was trying to tackle was the things that I was putting in my body and my hormones. So for me, I did the whole elimination diet, and I eliminated gluten, dairy, and sugar, and a whole bunch of other stuff to see if that was triggering my eczema and causing me to flare up. I started to see a little bit of an improvement when I was doing that, but it wasn't the solution. It wasn't actually clearing up the eczema that was there. When I thought things should be getting better for me because I was being so mindful of what I was putting in my body, things were actually starting to get worse. And this was also because my emotions and my mental health were actually starting to get worse as well. I wasn't feeling like myself at all. And my confidence was starting to go downhill because my eczema, on top of everything else that was going on with inside of me, my eczema was also starting to spread on my body, and it was getting worse. So what was once just located on my hands, and actually a little bit of my ankles, which happened about 2 to 2.5 years ago, started to now spread to different parts of my body. And so I was trying a slew of things. Like, it wasn't just one thing I was trying a million different things and consuming a million different things, hoping that something would help me and something would take away this itch that would just keep me up at night and would be just uncontrollable throughout the day. My skin escalated even more, and I'm gonna insert some pictures and show you guys what happened to me in terms of some flare-ups that started to take place all over my body, which had never happened to me in my life before. So my eczema actually spread all over the front of my arm, the inside of my arm, and it started to get worse on my hands. It started to happen, like I said, it was on my legs. It started to get patches on my stomach. My chest was itchy. Luckily, eczema never affected me on my face. I can never figure out why, but I'm truly grateful that it didn't. Every single part of my body was itchy, even my ears. I remember I was like, there'd be some nights where I was itching like the inside of my ears because they were so itchy. Every single night for about 6 months, I would be itching away. Like, it would keep me up for hours, and I would wake up to the feeling of it being so itchy that I'd wake up to actually like my arms cracked and bleeding sometimes, and like, sorry for some TMI, but there would actually even be like bleeding like on my bed sheets from how much I would be itching. Not a lot of people actually knew, other than the people that were closest to me, how I was actually suffering and how hard and debilitating dealing with this was, and how much sadness was in me. Not just from the eczema though, from a lot of things that took place in my life that I never actually dealt with, that I never actually went inside of myself to do the proper healing that it takes to gain confidence and closure. So this is why it's really hard for me to talk about. It's really real for me, because I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because this happened to me 3 months ago. Like this, I was going through the thick of it and the worst of my eczema 3 months ago, but I'm in a place now that I'm so much happier and feeling so much better than I did. And it's because of major changes that I decided to do and take for myself, and finally take control over my life in ways that were really, really crucial for me to actually start healing. One of the biggest things for me was taking up yoga. Yoga, I can honestly say, has been one of the best things for me in healing. It's one of those things that whenever I was having a day where I would like be so stressed out from work or so stressed out from my eczema or just not feeling good about myself or my body, I would just take out the yoga mat and follow a video or something that I found on YouTube, and that time would be just completely for me. I wouldn't be thinking about anything else. I would just be focused on my breath, and I'd just be focused on that moment and moving my body. And that's one of the biggest things that I can recommend, is taking up something, whether it be a hobby that just allows you to feel like you're not so caught up in your thoughts and up here, and because our thoughts are our worst enemy. Like those are the things that stress us out and make us feel even worse. And for me, what was going on in my stress was making me itch harder and harder. And whenever I did whenever I did yoga, it was a time for me to not focus so much on my eczema and to just be with myself and my breath and my body. And I felt really good after doing it every single time. And it's something that I really recommend to bring some calmness and peace and happiness to your life. Another thing that really helped me and has been helping me in healing from eczema has been to really take a good look around me and at the people that I'm surrounding myself with. I wasn't living in a good environment for the past 2 years. It wasn't really serving my happiness, and it wasn't a place that I felt that I could truly be at peace. And in return, that was actually causing my flare-ups to become worse and my eczema to become worse. It wasn't until I actually moved out from the places that I was living in prior and getting into a good environment, which I'm in currently in quarantine with my boyfriend, which has been for the past while, that my skin has actually started to completely clear up. And that was something that I never thought was possible 3 months ago. It's really important to surround yourself with people who are not bringing more stress, negativity, and sadness to your life. You want to be around people who are there to support you, who bring you peace and who bring you happiness, because it'll be almost impossible for you to fully heal without being in an environment that's conducive to your healing. And so that's one of the biggest things that I can recommend, and one of the biggest things that's been helping me so far. One of the biggest tips that I can give for healing, and one of the things that's been helping me the most, is actually listening to my body. And by listening to my body, I mean really paying attention to the things that I'm consuming, the people that I have around me, the conversations that I'm having. Quarantine, in a way, has been a blessing for me to really see this, because when I was working, I think I was so caught up in going to work, doing what I needed to do, and then coming back home and worrying about my eczema or worrying about my family or worrying about something else, and not really actually being there for myself and showing up for myself and doing what I need to do to make myself feel good. And this experience and having eczema has really allowed me to take a moment to actually listen to my own needs for once, for one of the first times in my life, because I've gone through a lot of my life, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, putting other people first. It's not until you make that switch to put yourself first that you can really start to heal and be in a better place in your life. Because as much as you want to help other people and be there for them, which is something that I'm committed to and it's always been a part of me, you can't truly be there for other people unless you actually are there for yourself first. And I wasn't. Another big thing, actually this is one of the biggest things that's been helping me, is seeing a therapist. So I've been seeing a therapist for the past little while now. I'd probably say around 2 to 2.5 months on a weekly basis. And the work that we've been doing in this short amount of time has been enormous for me. Like the amount of healing that's just taken place in these past 2 months, I honestly think has been one of the biggest results in helping me actually clear up my skin as well. So much of the hurt that's been inside of me that I haven't been able to really let out, we've been working through that. And it's a work in progress, and I've still been dealing with emotions and triggers and things that come up for me, and I'm not perfect whatsoever. But I honestly feel like for the first time in my life, I actually have so much more control over my emotions and myself than I ever did before. I think that every single person can benefit from seeing a therapist because we all have shit that we're dealing with. We all have stuff that we've gone through, and it's so important to talk about it. And I know that that's so cliche and we always hear that, but it truly is, because it's not until that you talk about it and express it that it actually doesn't have to be controlling you any longer. You can have control and have choice over the things that have happened to you and how you want to let them affect your future and affect your present self. But it's not until we take a look on the inside and see what we really need for ourselves and listen to our bodies and what our needs truly are, that's when the real healing will take place. Now when I have an itch or I notice a patch of eczema might come up on my arm or my hand, I've decided that I'm not going to look at it as a negative thing. Before, I used to think and freak out when I saw a patch on my arm or my hand and think, oh my god, it's coming back, or oh my god, I'm gonna look so ugly, or this needs to go away, or I need to get rid of this, and it would control my thoughts and consume me. My eczema was a blessing for me because it actually had me look inside of myself and see what's going on. And I don't think I would have done that if I didn't have something that was obviously staring me in the face every single day and causing me this external pain and internal pain as well. But it really forced me to actually go on this journey to become better and to choose to be a little bit better every day. Now I can see that my body was just trying to tell me that I wasn't in a good place whatsoever, that there was a lot happening inside of me that needed to be resolved and needed to be looked at, and I otherwise wouldn't have gone to work and looked at those things if I didn't have my eczema and my flare-ups showing me that there was something going on.